Is that a, Blue Bricks Defiant over your shoulder?
It sure is.
Oh man, so jealous.
And I've got
Uh,
I don't know if you can see it. This is the wait, oh, it's over. I'm over. Where am I over here? That's the the Monkey Raider right
okay.
there. And then you can't see it. Behind that, I've got the little Jem'Hadar fighter. But
Oh,
I was really really happy with the Defiant. It took a while to build, but I was quite impressed. I think somebody at Blue Bricks is a big fan of DS9, just given the details that they put into the Defiant.
yeah, they've got multiple levels of complexity
Hmm.
on their sets. I have still not been able to purchase any of them because I'm buying too many books instead of Lego or plastic sets from Blue Bricks.
You gotta make your choices, right?
Right? Yeah, exactly. Do they have do they ship retail to the US?
To the best of my knowledge, they don't have a retail store in the United States. They have their German website, and I think you have to order everything from them. I don't think they have a distributor in America yet.
Ah, that is rough.
Yeah.
How has Paramount allowed that to go on for so long? Like get them to the States, man. I
Yeah,
need Star Trek plastic stuff.
I have no idea how their license is set up. Like, I mean, I know our license, we have, so many regions that we have the ability to sell in and publish in. I can only assume that their license is similar. I don't really know though, but I guess if they had, I guess they would need they would need the region license, and then B, they would need to have a distributor in America who is willing to take their stuff and then sell it. And I don't know if they're there yet.
Yeah,
But it would be nice if they did, because it'd certainly be more convenient than having to wait for international shipping and customs and all that stuff.
it certainly would be. Yeah, wow. So I went off on a tangent there. Sorry about
No,
that.
no, no,
That's
no.
just
I will talk about Lego and Blue Bricks all day long.
Yeah, so as long as I've known about you professionally, I've always known you as like a project manager
Mhm,
for Modifice. And then, of course, before these interviews, I'll go check out everyone's websites and everything. And
mhm,
I pulled up my own stupid website, and I noticed that you were like a two-time, three-time participant in the Strange New Worlds.
mhm.
Yeah, three of those,
Three of them, yeah.
which uh, not too many people got into three of those stories.
Yeah, I think back in the day, back when the Stranger Worlds contest was a the thing the first time, from like, what was it, 97 to 2007, something like that. It was like a 10-year stretch where they kept doing it. I think Dayton Ward was the first one who got three, and not only I think he got three in a row, but it was also that he got three stories in a row. And I think informally the community started calling that a wardy. Like, if you get
Hmm.
three stories into the anthologies, you got your wardy. And I don't remember. At one point somebody had compiled all the authors and figured out how many there were, like 27, 28. I don't even remember. But yeah, I was fortunate enough to get in there and get three in. I got my third one was in Strange New Worlds 10, which was the last one until the 2006, no, 2016
16.
version
Yeah.
came out. Yeah. So no, we're really proud of that. Those were my first professional writing sales. Even though I had been writing prior to that, I had done some RPG freelance work prior to that, but those were my first fiction sales. Even though I had been submitting to magazines and Writers of the Future, I managed to get into Stranger Worlds. I was really excited for that. Obviously, Star Trek. It's If you're a Star Trek fan, it's hard not to be just to be sad about that. But yeah, no, man, you're a Star Trek Book Club website's been around for a long time, right? Because I know I read it a lot, and catch up on the reviews and everything. So I was really excited to see that you got a YouTube channel going now, and that
Yeah.
you're interviewing a lot of my favorite people. So that was really cool that it all
Yeah,
worked out.
it's been one of those one of those projects that have been percolating for years and years, and then just everything, all the dominoes lined up and fell down, and then Derek Attico, of course, was a fantastic guy to interview, and he was just like, "Hey, I know all these other people. Do you want to talk to some of them?" And I was like, "Yes, please, yes, please. This is a good thing going here." So and there's a ton of RPG writers out there that you just don't know, because you're not reading these books to like, oh, like, this was David Mack's RPG book, or this was Derek Attico's RPG book. There's a large number of people involved in each one of those books
That's right.
that you get more of a chorus instead of a singular voice, which works well on these kind of products.
Yeah.
Um, so I was gonna skip over all like the normal shore leave questions because I was like, oh, he's a PM for Monofis. But you've actually been there before. When was
Yeah.
the last time you went to a show?
When was the last time I was at shore leave? It must have been, it was oh god, it must have been pre-pandemic. So it must have been 2018, maybe
Mhm.
2019, because I think 2019 was like right before, because the pandemic hit in 2020, right? Yeah, in March 2020.
Yeah.
So it must have been 2019, maybe that summer, because I remember I had dinner with Derek and Kelly, because I think we were in the middle of doing the we were either starting to do the Shackleton Expanse campaign guide, or that was the meeting where I met up with a bunch of them and said, "Hey, we're going to do this. Let's get on and do it." In fact, it must have been, yeah, that must have been, because I think we were working on the Klingon book, and then we were going to do the Shackleton book right after that, and I wanted to start getting some writers lined up. And having gone to shore leave a whole bunch of times, I met a bunch of these writers, and they became friends, and it just worked out that they were willing to come along with me on the ride for Star Trek Adventures. And Yeah, so it's been a while. I'd love to go back. In fact, I was hoping to go this year. It just didn't work out, but I think next year I'll try to go for sure. Especially since I'll actually have more stuff to more, not so much to promote, but to I'll have more books to sell, and I'll have more things to talk about. This year it was a little hard because shore leave is this weekend, right? I mean,
It
as of
is. Yeah,
this
it's
week,
no, yeah, it's
yeah.
in like 3 days, 4 days.
Yeah, and Gen Con is next week, and Gen
Mhm.
Con is when we're generally releasing second edition. So surely it was a week too early to really make it happen. Although I could have probably done a sneak peek. And Kelly was gracious enough to take some of the quick starts with her, so she's going to give some of those away. So thanks, Kelly, for taking those with you. Really appreciate it. And hope fans check it out, and then we'll go on from there. But next year, I think I'll go to shore leave for sure. Try to do a panel, and then maybe I'll hang out in the gamer room and run some demos and just get people excited about it.
Right. Yeah, I've watched some YouTube stuff, but I've still never played the adventures, and I did like a series of like I think a single campaign of a like a quick start D&D thing.
Hmm.
And that was like, geez, like 7, 8 years ago now. So, I might as well just say that like I've got no experience with RPG stuff, but the Star Trek license, of course,
Yeah.
is extremely attractive to me.
Hmm.
And Yeah, I've got the collector's edition of Star Trek Online up on the shelf.
Nice.
I think got like 500 hours in the game.
Hmm.
Um, so they're like that whole thing is just is cool. The problem is that like my town where I'm at, not a whole lot of people that are both Trek oriented and RPG oriented.
Mm,
So
okay.
I think my best bet is to find like an online game somewhere and go
Yeah.
that route.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, especially with the pandemic, and then well, we're not really out of the pandemic, but as of the pandemic, like online gaming is really a thing, and there's a lot of opportunities to do that, whether it's play by post or going on to like Roll20 or one of the other virtual tabletops. There's a very wide proliferation of online gaming. And of course, given your literary background, being such a huge fan of Star Trek and of Star Trek novels, I think, not that I'm trying to sell you on anything, but take a look at Captain's Log, the solo RPG version, because that was like custom made for people who want to do Star Trek role playing, Star Trek stories, but may not have a group, may not be able to get together with a group on a regular basis. You can just crack that thing open and spin off your own stories to your
Right.
heart's
Yeah,
content.
I've put that on my dream board, as
Nice.
it were, or it's actually a Trello
Hmm.
card that is one among thousands of things that I want to do.
Yep.
It's just like sitting down deciding to do it. But
Yeah.
the first step to that is getting the computer that I use to run my Twitch streams back up and running. Because
Okay.
like something happened right as I started a new job, and like we had a bunch of stuff going on with our cats here in the house, and then we had a tornado come through that, like, thank God didn't do anything to my house or my trees, but
Yeah.
it made us look around and realize that we're surrounded by 200-foot pine trees that are
Oh
dropping
my
limbs all
gosh.
the time. So we're like, okay, well, we got to deal with that. We got to deal with this. We got to deal with that. So,
Uh-huh.
like in the past, it's always been like a Twitch stream that was my the fish tank that's behind me.
Hmm.
Um, so you just see the goldfish floating around all the time until I came on and played whatever, like, Helldivers 2 or something from my PS3 or something like that.
Hmm.
So like that's like a cool thing to get into, other than like building Lego on it.
Yeah.
That would be like a solo, but bring people along for the adventure, and maybe make a couple pennies or something while I'm
Mm.
doing it.
Nice.
Um, I'm still not to the PewDiePie level of subscribers on my Twitch channel yet.
Not many of us are.
I'm aiming for it. Keep my aspirations low.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm keeping my aspirations low too. It's funny. I started my YouTube channel more seriously in the last year or so, and my son is old enough now that my son's watching YouTube videos mostly for Minecraft and for Mr. Beast and that obvious stuff. And he's like, oh, so he's really excited that his dad is a YouTuber, right? But I had to temper my excitement because once I got into it, I was like, oh gosh, it'd be really kind of cool if someday I could earn a silver button plaque, right? And I didn't even know anything about it, right? It didn't even occur to me what it took to do that. And I looked at the requirements, and like, oh, 100,000 subscribers. How am I going to get 100,000 subscribers talking about
Right.
Star Trek when Star Trek's YouTube channel doesn't even have 100,000 subscribers? So I may have to do some thinking about my channel. Like, how can I like change it? Like, if that's my goal, if my goal is to get a silver plaque, then I need to figure out how to make more broadly interesting content than just Star Trek, and I haven't quite figured that out yet.
Right. Well, okay. So here's a free idea for you. It's called
Uh-huh.
Celebrity Ladder. Get the lowest level celebrity that you can get.
Uh-huh.
Bring them onto your channel to play like a quick game of like the RPG or whatever, and then
Mhm.
ask them who's the most like famous person that they know that would be able to come on your channel. And then you do that a few times until you've got like Patrick Stewart or someone like that
Oh my
on
gosh.
your channel. And maybe you're playing games, maybe you're not.
Uh-huh.
So go with
Uh,
God. It's your idea now.
that's an interesting idea. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that idea because it ties right into something that you were saying about the Star Trek writers and how like how Derek was willing and able to connect you with other writers to get you even more people to interview. I have noticed that uh that behavior and that philosophy like throughout the entire Star Trek family, right? Especially working on Star Trek Adventures over the years. I've been fortunate enough to make connections with different people, like either in the production of the shows, or just connected to Star Trek in some way or form. And it stuns me how like consistently people are willing to bend over backwards to either help you out or to give you connections to other people, and then all of a sudden you've got this network and your Rolodex keeps growing with names and stuff. It's like, how is this, how is this our job, right? Or opportunity to meet with all these cool people. And I'm just thrilled that you've gotten to get into that too, so that you can
Mhm.
start making more connections as well. It's just really exciting. And it's all Star Trek. It's all because of Star Trek. It's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. And I was actually like, I want to say I was shocked to see like a content from Kelly on Twitter because she posted pictures of the book, and I was like,
Mhm.
that is a good looking book. Also, I didn't even know there was going to be another second edition or a second edition of the thing coming out.
Mhm.
What would like, as someone that doesn't know much about RPGs, what's going to be the difference between the first book and the second one? Are they interoperable? Like, is it a replacement of the first book?
Yeah, well, so second the first edition of the book, the first edition of the game came out in 2017. So we developed it we got the license in 2016, and then we started developing the game, and then we were ready to release it in the fall of 2017 at Gen Con. Gen Con 2017 was our release. And that game came out before Discovery even aired, right? Because like Discovery hadn't even come out yet. I think Discovery came out, in September, and our game came out in August. And we didn't really know anything about what was going to be in Discovery, other than what we had seen on like commercials or just like, the media press and whatever. But so in the ensuing 7 years, we've been able to, Paramount we have a great working relationship with Paramount, and we're very grateful for that. They've gradually added the new series to our license over time, right? So eventually we got Discovery, then we got Picard and Lower Decks. and Strange New Worlds and Prodigy. And so in 7 years, we've realized, okay, the game that we made 7 years ago isn't as comprehensive as it could be, right? Because it's missed out on a huge swath of Star Trek that's come out in the last 7 years. And I mean, to the point where there's almost as much new Star Trek as there is old Star Trek, right? There's just so much, even though the legacy stuff was spread out over what, 53 years, 52 years or something. It was just an opportunity for us to look at it and say, okay, the game is, really good, and Nathan Dowdell, the game designer, designed a really good system, and it won, a couple industry awards, and has been generally very popular. But we felt like this was a good opportunity to go under the hood and or like go into engineering and tinker with the warp core crystals, realign them a little bit, freshen them up. I was joking about this on another call the other day. I was like, what we did is we took the old Constitution class and parked it in dry dock or in space dock, and we had Scotty come in and do a keel down, overhaul of it. So now what's coming out is the refresh Constitution class that you see in the motion picture, right? So you got that fresh. It's the same ship, right? It's just got a lot of new bits and pieces, or some streamlined pieces. So between first edition and second edition, we were very, very conscious of the investment that so many fans have made over the last 7 years in the game. And one of our primary design goals for the game was that it be backward compatible as much as possible. Like we're all lifelong gamers. We had a lot of experience with other game companies who would come out with a new edition of a game that was radically different from the prior edition, right? And then what they would do is they would, so they would come out with an all new edition, and then they would create refreshed versions of a lot of their uh, previous books, right? And so
Mhm.
like you felt like you kind of had to like buy it over again, because now it's the new edition and it wasn't really broadly compatible. But we didn't want to do that, right? We didn't want to go down that road. So uh, you know all things being said, the game is probably like 92% identical to what it was, between first edition and second edition. But we took an opportunity to do some refinements and do some streamlining, make some key changes here and there, just to speed up the game a little bit, and to really focus it even further into what we think it does really well, which is kind of bring the Star Trek, television tropes and experience to the game table, so that your group is playing through a Star Trek episode. It's not simulationist where you're trying to figure out the exact minutia of living in the Star Trek universe. It's okay, you and your friends are playing a Star Trek episode at your game table with all the dynamics, scene beats and breaks, and fade to black, or smash cut to commercial or something like that. Just trying to bring that real true Star Trek feel to the game. And I think the streamlining that we made to the game system will help facilitate that. Again, I don't know for sure, because we did a lot of play testing and we think that's where we got it. But at this point, we have to get it out to the public and get their feedback and see, okay, did we hit the mark? Did we miss the mark? Whatever. At a certain point, you just have to stop with a game and let it go and get it out there and see what the response is. So that's where we are with it
Yeah,
right
kind of
now.
like the I think it was George Lucas that said, a movie's never truly done. It's just like, that's when you have to release it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we could have spent, 5 more years on development of it if we wanted to, just to make it, perfect, quote unquote perfect. But
Right.
unfortunately, we are living in a capitalist society, and we do have to make money. And your game line books and products and whatnot, they don't make any money if they're just sitting in development for a
Right.
year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever. Eventually, you got to get it out the door, and hope you get the 99% solution out there, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but in the aggregate you try to make it work.
Yeah, well, as I said, I've never tried it myself, so I don't have a
Mhm.
personal opinion on it. But the reactions from the people that have been talking about it have been very positive from what I'm reading.
Yeah,
And I try to find the reviews
mhm,
for like all the books, and of course the RPG stuff falls under that banner. But those review for the RPG books are a completely different beast than like someone just saying, "Oh, I just read Pliable Truths.
mhm,
It was a good book." Usually, you get the guys that are talking about these games because they've been playing them, designing them for 20,
mhm.
30 years, and they get into some like really specific stuff that I'm just like, I'm going to take you at your word on this
Mhm.
because you sound like you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's similar but different, right? Because they're focusing on different things. They're talking, they're
Mhm.
focused on the game mechanics and the aesthetics and the look and feel, and it's interesting. In fact, there's a really good review came out the other day from somebody, and they were really getting into details on how they were coming at it from almost like a technical writing perspective, where an RPG book, it's not just giving you the lore and the fiction of the setting. It also has to be a technical manual because it has to teach you the game, and it has to present the mechanics and the rules and all that stuff. And part of my professional background, like day job wise, not the passion stuff, is in doing is writing proposals for for the government, for commercial. And writing proposals are often very technical because you have to really be clear on what you're offering and providing. And it's just a different kind of perspective, right? It's not just straight fiction, because you can't give a gamer just straight fiction because they won't know how to play the game, just reading a narrative, right? So it's really interesting that a lot of those reviews do go into a different level than what you would get from, like, reviewing a recent novel or something. So it's fascinating when you read enough reviews. It's fascinating to see how everybody has their particular bias about what's important to them or not important to them. Like, some folks really focus on the mechanics, and some folks really focus on the uh like just the aesthetic, like the artwork and the overall design of the book. It's just fascinating to see all the different perspectives, and then just try to absorb all that and continue to improve on it.
Yeah, so you're the project manager for Modifus. What exactly does that mean in terms of putting together an RPG book, or is it more than just putting together the book?
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything. So it's Modifius, uh,
Modifius.
with a long O and the umlaut over the use. So it's Modifius, and Modifius Entertainment. They're based in the UK, and yeah. So project managers at Modifius were primarily responsible for um, you know getting, so ideally we have a team, like, so we use a form of agile methodology. Being a PMP, you're probably familiar with agile and all the different
Yep.
processes that are out there, right? So Modifius uses a form of agile methodology, and so we every project, whether it's Star Trek Adventures or Dune or Dreams and Machines or whatever, every project has a project manager. We have a sponsor, we have a visionary, just as you would in an agile process. And we can concept out, like, okay, what project are we going to work on? Okay, we're going to do Star Trek Second Edition. Okay, what's that mean? So then we go through a foundational phase as part of that whole agile methodology, and we figure out, okay, exactly what do we want. And if you're familiar with Moscow, the Moscow process, the must-haves, would-haves, could-haves, should-haves, won't-haves. We go through that list, and so before we even start developing a project, we've gone through all that foundational stuff so that we know, not, I won't say exactly, but we know pretty clearly what we want the thing to do and what we want the thing not to do, right? Because, like, if we don't want it to do a certain thing, then we'll put that in the won'ts section. And then the project managers are off and executing, right? So we get out of that foundational phase and we go into development. I'm coordinating with the development team, the art team, and I'm also the line editor on Star Trek Adventures. So I'm the project manager, and I'm also the line editor. So I get to pick the writers. Well, actually, before I do that, I got to outline the thing. Like, okay, I'm
Mhm.
making this book. What's going to be in this book? So figure out the outline, and then once we got the outline, then I start making assignments. I figure out, okay, I need someone to write 10,000 words about Starfleet, and somebody to write 10,000 words about all the different worlds, and we need this, that, and the other thing. And then it's just from there, it's managing the project, managing the deadline, managing the budget. I mean, it's just like any other project, right? It's herding cats, or in this case, it's Star Trek, so it's herding tribbles for months and months and months, and just keeping things moving, coordinating with all the different departments. Like, I've got a great art director, Ariel Aurier. You'll see I mean, you've seen his work in some of the Star Trek RPG books we've done recently, but especially in second edition, we had an opportunity to really bring up the level of the art even further and continue to evolve it. And so he and I worked together on developing the art briefs, which is kind of like a short paragraph or two of like what we want a certain piece of art to be, and then we would put together some art references, and he would send that off to the artists and work with them to work their magic. Like I don't know all the alchemy that goes into like creating a thing from a sketch to a rough sketch to a draft or whatever. But I help him because obviously I'm the next to Nathan. Nathan and I are probably the resident two super Trek fans who know the canon and the details pretty solidly. So it's just good for us to help with the art briefs because then we can help orient. We want a Romulan, but we don't want a 24th century Romulan. We want a 23rd century Romulan, and so the costumes are different and the makeup is different, and the bridge designs and layouts behind them would be different. So it's just a matter of sourcing all that artwork and sourcing reference material. And fortunately, we live in an age where we have the internet, and that helps a lot finding source material. But also, those of us who've been doing Star Trek for a long time, especially with books, we've got reference libraries that we can
Hmm.
draw on from stuff that came out 20, 30 years ago that's long out of print, but you're still able to find it in certain places, and you just got a collection of it. And I can grab the old Star Trek magazines, right, and find all those old fact files, pieces of art, and say, you see this piece of art, we want to take that, but modernize it, right? So that helps a lot. But yeah,
Yeah.
so ultimately it's just managing the project and going through development, and then working with the licensor to approve everything, review and approve all, because literally everything in our books has to be reviewed and approved by the licensor. The manuscripts, the artwork, the design, the logos, like all that stuff gets reviewed by Paramount and approved ultimately.
Now, do they do that approval like at the sketch level for the artwork, or do they prefer to wait for the end result to see what it actually is?
Yeah, for us, they've never really needed to see sketches. So what we normally
Hmm.
do is we provide them the final, like what we think is the final version of the art. Sometimes they'll have some notes. They'll say, oh, tweak this little thing, or you missed this little you missed a rank pip. Or the best example I can think of how great their team is at attention to detail is when we were doing when we were developing the Klingon core rule book for the first edition. We had a piece of art that had a handful of Klingon warriors, doing something. I think they might have been doing one of the rituals, and I looked at it and I was like, "Yeah, this is great." We checked all the details to the best of my knowledge, and then we sent it off for review, and it came back is like, "This is a really good piece of art." One of the Klingons' belt buckles has the little buttons out of the same alignment that we normally see on screen. Do you have a reference for what the artist used for that, or do you know why that was different? And I looked at it and I was like, oh, it didn't even occur to me to look at the background Klingon's belt buckle, who had the buttons in a slightly different orientation than what we normally see on screen. So I went and found some source material, and I was like, oh yeah, she was absolutely right. We got that wrong. So we went back to the artist and corrected the belt buckle, and then they approved it. But I really appreciate that the team at Paramount are like even more super Star Trek, fans and geeks than we are, and have just a wealth of material and knowledge available to them, so that they can look at a background character and say, "Yep, that belt buckle's wrong. You need to fix that belt buckle." And it just made me appreciate how important it is to really focus on the details, even if you don't think they'll notice it. We've
Hmm.
tried really hard not to try to, like, we don't want to sneak anything past them or anything, right? So it's just a dynamic, exciting time. So I think it's good to have that relationship with them. So it's worked out pretty well for us.
Yeah. The who I'm trying to remember who I was talking to earlier that they were talking about how well their relationship was going as well. I want to say it was someone with the comic book side of things. Maybe Dayton Ward was talking about how he was doing some consulting with them, and that
Mhm.
IDW and their team is working very well with CBS Paramount.
Yeah,
Which if you're reading the IDW stuff, man, they're knocking it out of the park right now too.
it's amazing. My one of my writers, Michael Dismuke, and I, we run a podcast every week called Continuing Conversations about Star Trek Adventures, and we were lucky enough. This is just harkens back to the Rolodex of Star Trek people that are willing to connect with each other. We managed to get Heather Antos to come on and have a chat with us, and she's the Star Trek editor at IDW, right?
Hmm.
And it was just amazing to talk to her and just like to hear all the detail work that she does with Paramount, right? Because like I think she mentioned that they have regular meetings, her and Dayton and some of the other folks. Of course, comic books are a different beast than like RPGs or even novels, where not only are they reviewing and approving the scripts, right? They've got to review and approve all the artwork. And you got, especially with the artwork, I have to imagine like the artwork we do, sometimes we have canon characters in there, and sometimes we use not to say generic, but characters that you haven't seen on screen yet. And I know that usually the talent or the talent's estates need to take time to review that art to make sure it's appropriately representing the character and the talent. And I have to imagine that the comic books, since those are largely canon characters, I must believe that every page or every panel is probably reviewed by somebody, right? And that's just
Right.
a magnitude of more effort to go into it. And the comic books are on a regular schedule, right? Like I think some of their stuff is monthly, isn't it?
Yeah,
Or
they've got like 2 or 3 monthly series, and then they have like a rotation of just like
yeah,
mini series and stuff like that, stories that are constantly going in and out. So like, I'd love to pick the brain of their project managers too,
uh-huh.
or maybe it's all in Heather's head. Like, who knows?
Yeah, I don't know, but man, yeah, I mean, knowing how robust our engine is, theirs is even more because they got so much more to do. Like they've probably got multiple issues going on at any given time, because I know there's pencils and then inks and then the lettering and all that stuff, and it's just once you get the machine going, you just can't stop it. You just got to keep it moving, and that's the challenge of a project manager, as I'm sure you're aware of. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean that the great thing about project management and program management is the skills are easily transferable,
Hmm.
right? So like I mean I'm in the middle of a job hunt now, right? And looking for project management jobs or something like that. And even though the where I was you know big business, big IT, big data, right? Project management is project management, right? You can transfer that to a lot of different industries and a lot of different circles. It's just a matter of finding the right opportunity. So yeah, absolutely work where you are now and build up those skill sets, and then who knows where you'll end up with it.
Right. And hey, maybe I could just interview authors and RPG project managers for a living.
Nothing wrong with that if you can find a way to monetize it, right? And
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a
do
few ways, right? I mean, there's the
content.
Google ads you got on the
Yeah,
site, then there's ads on YouTube, and then there's ads on Twitch, and like those are all like the penny income kind of thing. So what you
yeah.
really need is like a book deal or like a review deal or like something where there's actual like a cash coming in. But
Hmm.
then it becomes a job. Like the hobby site that I have right now then becomes like, well, I have to go out there and actually do stuff instead of just talking about the comic books I just bought or talking about the books I just read.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think there's a danger there, but I think I'd be willing to try it out. So completely off topic, but I'm not sure which profile it was that I saw. It was like Facebook or Twitter or something like that. Um, mentioned that you have a bunch of cats. Is that still true, or is that an out of date profile?
I think one of the profiles I saw that I'm working on working on updating all my stuff, but I had four at one point. I'm down to two now. So my two cats right now, they're both 14, but still trooping along. So I've got, and I no longer have a newborn son. My son is now 8. So I think one of my old profiles said I live in Virginia with my partner and my newborn. It's like, oh wait, he's not a newborn anymore. I gotta fix that.
Right.
I think my Amazon page was a little out of date, so I've been working on updating all that stuff. I
Yeah,
think
and
that
your website hasn't been updated since like
yeah,
2018.
yeah, I'm working on that.
But
I think you'll find that like right about the time I got into Modifius, all my fiction stuff kind of got put on hold, and I've been working full bore not full time, but full bore on Star Trek Adventures, and it's only within the last 6 months or so that I'm starting to shift back and trying to get back to my my fiction writing a little bit. And I mean, in fact, literally just last week, I signed up for a new mailing list service, and on my to-do list for the next 2 weeks is to update my website and get all that up and running again, because I know it's it's been long out of date. I've gotten my YouTube channel up and running in the last year or so. So I just need to connect them now. I need to connect my YouTube channel to my website, and then I think the website, because it's a WordPress blog, that feeds right into Amazon, onto my
Hmm.
Amazon author page. So when you go to somebody's author page, you can see their regular blog posts, assuming they're posting blogs regularly. So it's a nice little infrastructure that I can build. I needed the time to get around to doing it, and so I'm trying to work on getting that back up.
Yeah, one of your last posts on there was talking about how you were doing I wrote it down. It's called Star Trek Inspiring Culture,
Hmm.
which was a educational thing that was done by, I think, like the Smithsonian. They had like a
Hmm.
Smithsonian Light. Unfortunately, that's not there's like no trace of it anymore. Just
Yeah.
like the program itself, not there. But there's all sorts of people talking about trying the program.
Hmm.
But that same post gave me the clue. Like you were talking about your 3-year-old kid, and I was like, well, parents get a pass on not updating their websites, working full time, raising a kid.
Yeah, yeah. I get that, and I appreciate that, but at the same time, like as a working author, I need to have that stuff updated. So somehow I got to find the time to do the important family stuff and life stuff, but also I need to carve out a little bit more time to take care of the business side of things. So it is a balancing act, and I will admit it's gotten a little easier as he's gotten older,
Hmm.
but it's still like you said at the top of the conversation, life is precious, time is precious, and I'm trying to maximize much of the time as I can with him before inevitably he
We're
moves
talking,
on.
right?
But
Right.
exactly.
So what else is coming up, or recently, I guess, because I saw that there was just one more expansion that was released. That was going to be the last one with the first edition trade dress on it.
Hmm. Yeah, so what was that? I think that was the mission briefs. So over the last several years, it was actually when we were developing the Klingon Core rulebook, and I guess a little backstory about that for you and for your viewers. If you're into the RPG circles, right, especially the Star Trek RPG circles, for long enough, way back in the early, no, must have been the mid 90s. Last Unicorn Games had the license to do Star Trek RPGs, and they announced that they were going to do a Klingon supplement for their game, but they got purchased by Wizards of the Coast before they could fulfill all of their goals for their game line, for the Star Trek game line. And and then no, wait, no, what happened? No, I think the cipher, I can't even remember anymore. But the development, no, it was, I think Last Unicorn Games folded. Decipher Incorporated picked up the license, and they started doing a Star Trek RPG. And they announced they were going to do a Klingon Core rulebook for the game, and then they collapsed before they had an opportunity to do that. And so, for if you were a Star Trek gamer for that period of time between the early '90s and the early aughts, like there's like a 20-year span there. You'd always been promised a Klingon Core rulebook, but it never actually came to fruition. So in the gaming circles, we kind of called that the Klingon curse, where it was never going to happen. And when Modiphius came out with the Star Trek Adventures RPG, the project manager, the first project manager at the time, Sam Webb, she was determined to figure out how to break that curse. Right? How are we're going to do the first edition core book, and then somewhere in the course of development, we're going to do a Klingon core book just to break that curse. And finally, we managed to start developing that in 2018, and then like 2019, and then during the pandemic is when we were working on it. It came out, I think, the fall of 2020. So I remember that was such a weird time because we were working on it during the pandemic, and it's so weird. But anyway, so that came out, and you know what? I think I've lost my train of thought. I was talking about the Klingon book.
The mission briefs
Oh, the
that
mission
just
briefs.
came
Right, right,
out.
right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So when I was developing the Klingon Core book, I wanted to give fans an opportunity, and that's where we were starting to move the game even more toward narrative, Star Trek storytelling, and trying to move away a little bit from like the standalone adventures, like the modules that we were producing were very detailed, act one, act two, act three, going into a lot of detail on what happens on each act, and not so much being a railroad, but like giving the game master and play a lot of information, right, about the NPCs and the characters and the situations and stuff, and how to tell the story. And what I realized is like when I'm running the game, I usually just start with a rough outline of what I think of how I think the story should start, and then some notions of like where I think it'll go. But I really rely on the players to kind of develop the story with me once we get into it. And I was like, how can I translate that into a format that I could give to gamers and players that they could do something with it in their game? And I came up with the notion of doing these one-page mission briefs that provide a synopsis, an opening log, just to kind of like, because like most Star Trek episodes start with somebody's personal log or mission log or something like that, and then some rough story beats. And if you're familiar with screenwriting or novel writing, you'll know the tropes of hitting. So we provide some major beats that the story could go from, some minor beats if you want to add in some subplots or some other storylines, and then a notional ending, like here's, all things being equal, here's how this story could probably resolve itself, but with a lot of flexibility. And so we put 12 of those mission briefs into the Klingon Core rule book, and the fan response was really positive, right? They really liked them. And I was like, okay, well, this is an opportunity for us to start developing some new products. And we decided, as a company, that we would do a new mission brief. So we do mission brief packs, like that are a pack of 10, one pagers, themed around something in particular, right? So maybe it's like the one that just came out was called megafauna, like space megafauna. So huge interesting creatures or huge interesting things that are in space. Here's 10 different stories revolving around that. Recent one was political actions, so set in the movie era. Here's different political situations that are going on. Here's 10 different stories related to that, et cetera, et cetera. And so that was an opportunity to give fans some love, because it's free content, and who doesn't love free content? It
Mhm.
was all pure story, right? So we didn't have to worry about any mechanics. There's no mechanics in these mission briefs, which means that they're 100% compatible with first edition and second edition, and even Captain's Log, right? So if you're playing Captain's Log and you need some story ideas, you can go grab one of those free mission brief packs and go have fun. But as a project manager and a developmental editor, and also I guess an acquisitions editor, those mission brief packs, because they're fairly short. I mean, they're only about 5,000 words in total, and that's about the length of a short story, right? So as an acquisitions editor and having a robust release schedule, I was able to start reaching out to writers and saying, and giving new writers a chance to say, hey, you want to write for Star Trek Adventures? Here's a way to do it. You don't need to learn the mechanics. You just need to know Star Trek, and you need to be able to write. And I've had the happy fortune to give a lot of writers their first opportunity in the RPG industry anyway. But I know some of them, like Michael Dismuke and Al Spader, they've taken their experience on Star Trek Adventures and they've spun it off into their own careers. Where Michael just recently had a story published in Star Trek Insider, right? So now he's,
Explorer.
or Explorer, yeah, Explorer, sorry. And Al Spader's gone on to publish his own RPGs. Like he published one called Sentience, and he's got a couple of new other ones coming up here pretty soon. And for me, I mean, that's so humbling and exciting, because it's like, oh, I gave them an opportunity, and now they're taking that opportunity and running with it. And it reminds me of what happened to me, back in 2003, 2004, when I was writing those Strange New World stories, and Dean Wesley Smith and the other editors pick my stories to be in the anthology. So like they gave me an opportunity and I tried to take advantage of it. And now I'm in a place where I can pay it forward and give other people opportunities and give them chances to excel. And it's all because of Star Trek. It's like, how can that be a bad thing, right? And so it's just an amazing story that we get to share in this. And then when some of us are in a position that we can carry it forward, we do that. So I'm grateful for that. But that all gets around to Star Trek Adventures and the second edition. We released the Quick Start earlier this year, and that's a free download PDF that has just enough of the rules for you to play through the adventure. There's a short adventure in there. There's a bunch of pre-generated characters, so like it doesn't tell you how to make a character, but it provides 7 7 different characters that you would, just spread among the players that you have at the table. And then someone gets to be the game master and just runs through that adventure. So the quick start is intended to give you a taste of the game and a feel for the game, and hopefully you're excited about it and want to learn more. And then you would go, grab the core rule book. That's the big meaty, 350 page something core rule book
Hmm.
that has all the information in it about not just the Star Trek setting, the Star Trek lore, all the different things that you can use to create a character, create a starship, and then actually play the game. We got that coming out. There's a game master toolkit. So like if you're in the gaming world, um, often most game lines out there, you have a game master screen. Like it's a foldable screen that has tables and charts and information on it that ideally would help the game master run the game more effectively at the table, whether it's a real physical table or a virtual table. And we packed that. There's a 40-page booklet in there with a bunch of other information, additional additional spaceships, additional content for the game, like game mechanics for the game, and a whole bunch of reference cards just to make it easy, so that you don't have to you don't have to flip through the pages of the core book when you're playing the game. You can just look at the reference card and you're off and running. And then we this fall we have a starter set coming out, and the starter set will be a short rule book, three-part adventure, a bunch of sample characters, reference cards, and some custom die, not custom dice, but D20s. It's all standard D20s. But we've got a special color and a special symbol on the one face, just to, it's the Star Trek Delta, and we've done that on our dice before, but we want to just make sure we do something kind of cool and fun. And the starter set is designed to be played right out of the box, so you don't need to buy a book, you don't need to buy anything extra. You buy the starter set. It's a low price point. It's meant to be a loss leader. I mean, if we're talking about
Hmm.
capitalism again, it's meant to get people into the game and get excited about the game, play it, have a full blown experience with the campaign, and then if you like it, then maybe you'll go try out more of the game. And then we have a robust schedule of stuff coming out in 2025 that we haven't announced yet, but that's just how the RPG cycle happens. Is you constantly have more product in development and working on. I mean, like at the height of first edition, I had probably 30 to 40 different products on my plate at any given time. A lot of them were small, PDFs, like 10, 20-page PDFs. But as a project manager, like project management, it's a lot of work, and when you do that across 30 different projects on any given day, it's a lot of work. But we trimmed that down a little bit, and so it's not quite so insane right now, partly because we have this huge backlist of first edition stuff that is largely compatible with second edition, so we'll be able to take advantage of that, and give anybody coming into the game now with second edition are going to have a huge backlist of stuff that they can draw on for more material, which I think is really cool. I think hopefully fans will see, they don't have to sit there and wait for new stuff to come out, right? There's just a wealth of material
Right.
already there for them to play with. Um,
Yeah, those starter guides are the starter kit that you said is coming up soon. That's a very clever idea, because the thing that's always been intimidating to me about it is that book, man. I mean, that's like a solid book, and I don't know how much of that I need to know or memorize, or
right.
just even know how to look stuff up. But if you have like that quick start kit, and you're like, you don't need all those big books, you can
Hmm.
get there, and God bless you if you do, because you got a wealth of things to get into.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that's something that I'm going to like probably check out as soon as it hits the streets.
Hmm.
Do you know how soon that one's coming out?
Yeah, so I mean, we're recording this on Monday, the 22nd, or is that where we are? Yeah. So the pre-order PDFs will go out on Wednesday for everybody who's pre-ordered the book over the last several months. And then Gen Con is where we're looking to release the core rule book and the toolkit, and at same day as Gen Con, we'll release all the PDFs for sale as well. So if you're interested in buying the game but you don't want to buy the print product, you can just go buy the PDF off the web store instead of the whole thing. Modifius gives you free PDFs anytime you buy a print product. No matter where you buy the print product from, we'll give you the PDF for free. But some people just want to buy the PDF. They don't care about the print product, which is a rarity. Like in the RPG industry, by and large, fans, I think, are still very paper bound. Like, we love to have those big hardcovers, we love to have the books in our hands, and I
Yeah, and
totally get it.
it's
I
hard to
love
flip through a Kindle real quick to find something
yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, so we'll have all that coming out here pretty soon. We're right on the cusp of it. In fact, I've already kind of booked my Wednesday so that I can just spend the day on social media listening to people's reactions to the PDFs once they finally get them, because that's always exciting. Is what's the reaction going to be? Because we've been sitting on it for 2 years now, right? And
Hmm.
we did send out copies to media and to reviewers, and so we're starting to see some reviews coming out, which is encouraging. But it's always the court of public opinion that you want to you want to focus on, and so we'll see what happens here in the next couple of days. Um, but other than that, I think the only other thing I was thinking would be useful for your audience is I've been very fortunate with Star Trek Adventures, mostly because of my connections to Strange New Worlds, the book series, and having, and especially Shore Leave, actually, because I've met so many of these writers at Shore Leave and have become friends with them over the years, that I've been fortunate enough to invite a lot of those writers to come write for Star Trek Adventures, right? So if you've been kind of casually interested in the game, or you're even focusing on the game, like, you'll find Dayton Ward, Scott Pearson, Keith DeCandido, Christopher Bennett, uh, Kelly Derrick. I mean, there's a lot of names that are out there writing Star Trek fiction who have come and worked for me on the game line, and I'm grateful that they've all been willing to do it. um and like, Dayton's got some stuff that he's working on with me right now, and Scott is our canon editor. Like, he goes through the manuscripts and gives me an extra set of eyes and an extra Star Trek brain, because he's so
Hmm.
knowledgeable about Star Trek, especially because he's the main copy editor for all the novels, right? So he has a wealth of information about the books that I don't have, because, like, I've read a lot of Star Trek novels. I have not read all of them. Right? I've got a lot. I mean, I think the last time I checked, I've got 350 novels on my Kindle, because it's just so easy to buy them from Simon and Schuster when they run their monthly sales, right?
Yep. Yep.
And I just I can't retain that much information as well as Scott can. And Scott's great, because I'll say, "Hey, Scott, I need a sidebar about, Romulans in the 23rd century. Is there anything in the novels that is related to that I can tie into?" And more often than not, he'll be able to give me, a 5 6 bullet list of options to go look at, and then that gives me some research to go do. But yeah, so especially if you've gone to Shore Leave, like that circle of regular Star Trek writers who go there, um a lot of them are in my book. And in fact, I joked about the Shackleton Expanse campaign guide, right? Because that's the all the writers on that were me and Dayton and Scott and Kelly and Derek, right? So, and we're all at Shore Leave, and so that one year we went to Shore Leave to promote Shackleton. It was really neat because we got to be on a panel. We were on a panel together talking about it, and I looked at it and I was like, wow. I told the Shore Leave audience, I was like, this is pretty much the Shore Leave book, because, like, every main writer on this book was at Shore Leave, except for like one or two exceptions. But it was just it's neat that, like, Shore kind of brought us all together by virtue of Strange New Worlds and Star Trek, and then we've just been able to kind of like evolve that connection over the years. So that's the power of conventions, and that's the power of Star Trek, and that's the power also of just maintaining connections, right? And I know maintaining
Hmm.
connections was really hard during the pandemic, and that's why I'm really grateful that Shore Leave they did a virtual convention in like 2020 or 2021, something like that. And, like, I have to admit that that was like one of my best Shore Leave experiences, because we were all on a bunch of panels, but, like, the panels were virtual, right? So we had time to get to one to the other, because, like, Shore Leave was dynamic, where if you were on back-to-back panels, but they were in two different parts of the hotel, you had to hustle to get from one panel to the other panel in 5 minutes. And, like, I remember a lot of us were always like rushing down the halls and stuff. Like, can't talk now, can't talk now. We'll wait till after the panels and stuff. But I guess that's true for a lot of writing conventions. But yeah, so I guess just my comment for the readers and the viewers of Star Trek Book Club. Like, a lot of the writers that you've come to know and love through the novels, do pop in from time to time on the Star Trek RPG, and give it an opportunity, because like there's some really cool lore and information in the RPG that you might not find in the novels. And we don't have an official license to the novels, but just by virtue of me being a fan of the novels and hiring some of the writers, we're able to drop in Easter eggs into the RPG that relate to the novels and to the comic books and to the video games and everything else. So you're seeing a real broad, tapestry of stuff in the RPG, which is a lot of fun to work on. So I hope, folks give it a chance if they haven't tried it out already.
Right. Now, I actually own a good portion of the first edition books
Hmm.
through a humble bundle that I got.
Nice. Yeah.
That was a few years ago, and I,
Hmm.
I want to say there's been probably about 50% more content that's come out.
Yeah.
Is there a future bundle that like might be coming out, or you guys like how was the response to that?
I mean, the humble bundles are amazing, right? I mean, that organization does such a great job supporting charities and giving opportunities to people to, or for companies to offer some cool stuff at a good price point, but also giving you the opportunity to add more money to it to go to worthy charities. Um, I I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but I think we've done 3 Star Trek humble bundles over the span of 7 years, and we sold a lot of bundles. I mean, I think the first one was in excess of 20,000 bundles sold. I mean, all the different, I don't even know what the price points were, but like when you got 20,000 people buying buying Star Trek stuff, I mean, there's a lot of gamers out there enjoying at least owning the game. I don't know if they're enjoying it, but it's certainly a much bigger number than the number of fans that are online engaging, like on the Discord or on the Facebook group or something like. And that's always fascinating. It's like, okay, well, we've got, you know 3,000 people on the Facebook group, the unofficial Facebook group that is a great community of people. But like I know for a fact that there's way more people who have purchased the books either through the humble bundles or just through the through the websites. It's like, where are you people? Like, where you're just happily out there in the world, enjoying your books, enjoying your games or whatever. And it's just an interesting disconnect that to know that there's people out there happily enjoying the stuff, but just not connecting online. I guess even in the 21st century, I guess I had a notion that more people would be online, but I guess they're just not, and that's cool. I mean, it's just fascinating to know that.
Right, and I think it's finding the specific places too, because I know that I'm also very active in the Starship modelers
Uh-huh.
groups.
Hmm.
I've never made models myself, but Eagle Moss, God bless them, they should have stayed in business just from my money alone.
Hmm.
Because I subscribed, like I pre-subscribed when they announced they were doing their Starship line. I bought
Mhm,
every single one of those things, and I've got like a complete collection of like the subscription ones.
mhm.
But there will be people that are like, "Oh, well, I've just never heard of like the subreddit for the Starship modelers, or
Mhm.
I've never been to this like Facebook group that's got like 15,000 people in it, and they're all posting these spaceships that they've modeled and everything." And I honestly didn't even consider like going to like a Discord or a Facebook group to find other like people
Right.
that are involved in like the RPG space too. And like I've made a note now to check those things out, because I would imagine they've got like some sort of like virtual looking for group or looking for game
Yeah,
situation
yeah.
that maybe that's a good way to bring in, or to not bring in, but to access the game itself, is to get someone that's running the game to let me in.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I know that there's a number of discords related to Star Trek Adventures. Of course, there's the Modifius official Discord. We have a Star Trek channel, and one of the sub channels is gamers looking for gamers to play the game. The Facebook groups have that as well. The subreddit does too. I'm sure there's other groups out there. I just haven't been able to find them all yet. Unfortunately, Twitter's not really effective for that kind of stuff. Blue Sky's not that effective for that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think the subreddit, Discord, and Facebook are the 3 primary. Although you could go on to some of the virtual tabletops that are out there and find games that way. And then I think there's something called what is it called? Start Playing, I think, is a website where professional game masters go and say, "Hey, I'm running Dungeons and Dragons, or I'm running Star Trek, or I'm running whatever," and people can sign up for that and play the game that way. So, uh, I think as virtual tabletops and virtual gaming continues to grow, I think you'll see more things happening in that circle as well, just over time.
Yeah, you mentioned the free start guide that you guys have at your website,
Mhm.
and my wife, when I told her like how amped I was to be talking to you tonight,
Mhm.
and I was like, "Oh yeah, and they got this free start guide," and she's like, "How come we haven't tried playing this game yet?" And I'm like, "I mean, if that's something you're into, baby,
Yeah.
like we could do that. That'd be fantastic."
Nice. No, that's
So
cool.
I yeah, I
Great.
actually grabbed the PDF today when I was at work and I sent it to her and I was like, homework for you, read it. Of course, I don't think either of us have read it yet, but it's on our checklist now.
Oh, excellent.
It's
Cool.
yeah, and something else that I noticed today too is that Modifus is moving warehouses, and they've got like a 50% off sale on all their physical books.
Mhm.
So it's tempting. If that sale's still there when I get back from shore leave, I may use the few dollars I have left from shore leave to get the some of the hardcover editions.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, so the warehouse sale, or it's not a warehouse sale. The warehouse is moving in the United Kingdom. We're moving warehouses in the UK. That'll help streamline some processes in the UK. The US warehouse is remaining where it is, but that hasn't changed. But between the US warehouse and the UK warehouse, we are running that 50% off sale for all things Star Trek Adventures first edition. And yeah, it's a great opportunity to pick up some stuff if you haven't picked it up yet. And I know some stuff is sold out, and we're not planning on reprinting any of it because we're focusing entirely on second edition. But yeah, if there's stuff out there that you're excited by, definitely pick it up. I mean, so much of the lore and the sidebars, all the information in those books is still completely 100% valid and usable with second edition. You will need to tweak some of the stat blocks, but I mean, really, the system is so similar between the two editions that it should not be a hard lift for anybody to spend a couple of minutes updating the stat blocks and then going forth with it. But like the command source book, division source books, those are full of great lore and information. Like if you choose to play a science officer, a great opportunity to go grab the science source book and get all that extra science, Star Trek science stuff in your head so that you can, have fun role playing that kind of character. So, but yeah, good shout out for the sale.
It's a dangerous sale. That's what that is. So I'm like,
Yeah,
if it's half off, that means I get to buy twice as much, right? Like that's how
exactly,
that works.
exactly. That's totally how it works. But yeah, Adam, any other thoughts or anything? I mean, gosh, I could talk all day about Star Trek and gaming and writing, but
Yeah, the
I
same
don't
same here, but we
want
are
to
pushing up dangerously close to
last
my
an hour.
bedtime here. So
Yeah, understood. Well, thank you
thank
so
you
much
so
for
much
having
for
me on.
talking to me, though. I
Yeah.
really appreciate the everyone's just the absolute like pleasure of speaking about all these topics.
Hmm.
It's been fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I've watched most of your author interviews, and what I love, not just you, but all your guests are just so passionate about Star Trek, and I'm grateful to be a piece of it. So thanks so
Hmm.
much for having me on this show, and thanks for everything that you're doing with the website, the Star Trek Book Club website, because I can't tell you how many times I've referenced that over the years, and I love the fact that you have a gigantic list of Star Trek writers on there. Like I was looking at it, this afternoon, of course, because I've got a little bit of an ego, not too much, but a little bit. And I was like, "Am I even on here?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, there I am." And
Yeah,
you
you've
have
even
all of that.
got the name that's correctly capitalized because there was a point where I was like on my to-do list is to break that down by what type of content that people have written
Oh, nice.
because I accidentally like started getting magazines because I was buying book lots from Goodwill during the pandemic and they were coming with magazines and I was like, okay, well maybe I want magazines too, and then I got a heck of a deal on. Geez, it was they did it by weight. So it was like 30 pounds of Star Trek magazines
Oh
at
my
my
gosh.
local Goodwill, which the old magazines that came with the like centerfold blueprints in them.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
want to say it was Communicator or something like that.
Star Trek the
Um,
magazine.
tho- yeah,
Yeah.
those are heavy books. Like that is
Yeah.
like premium paper on premium covers. But I was like, well, I'm gonna start putting in, because like they're authors, right? They're doing stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But then within the magazine space, there's people that are writing uh fiction in those magazines,
Yep.
and then there's people that are doing interviews in that space and talking in that space. And I'm like, okay, well, we have to separate those two out, obviously. So it turned into like I just want to separate if they did magazine stuff versus book stuff
Mm-hmm.
into this like much larger project, where I was like, okay, well, we need to know if it was fiction, nonfiction, licensed, non-licensed,
Yeah.
like all this like varying degrees of everything in between, if it's a reprint, if it's not a
Mm-hmm.
reprint. Um, but yeah, there is a ton of people that have written on Trek.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then you even with the like the scholarly books that are coming out. Like I know Kelly got a couple of essays written and published, and I know that there's a couple gentlemen, Jason Kaufman and Aaron Peterson. They wrote a book on Star Trek and leadership, right,
Hmm.
from academic press. And so like very small press, small presses, but it's still Star Trek related, right? And I think your mandate, if I remember your mandate correctly on the website, or maybe it was the introduction to the channel, is that you want to try to catalog everything Star Trek in print, right? Everything in a
Right,
print format, and that's not just the big traditional publishing houses. That's everybody. And
right.
I'm actually curious. I don't remember if I saw it on your website, but like, are you gonna dive into the fanzines and all the different zines that have come out over the 60 years of Star Trek? Because that's all print, right? That's all
It
printed stuff.
it is, and it's hard to track that kind of stuff
It
down,
is. Yeah.
because I did get a large lot of like, what's the correct term for it? Like slash fiction,
Oh my gosh.
that
Yeah.
was like self-published,
Uh-huh.
and I'm like, this is like some crazy stuff. Except
Hmm.
there's like some, like I recognize some of the names of the authors that were in it, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, you know, everyone likes to write their own stuff. Like some of the weirder stuff I've gotten was like the printed lobby cards for like Star Trek 4, Star Trek 5, where it gives
Hmm.
like a synopsis of the movie, and then like on the back of it, it tells you about like, what the actors are, like who they are and where you know them from, that kind of thing. And I'm like, is it a book? No. So it's not going on the website. I don't think those will, but at the same time, I don't want to get rid of them, because like they're cool.
Hmm. I mean, yeah, you were kind enough to give me a free idea earlier in the conversation.
Right.
I'll give you a free one. Like you might possibly be uniquely positioned to have all this literature and history and lore at your hands. You could like take all, I mean, not to say just the slash fic, but like all the fan fiction and
Hmm.
like all those zines that you have. There's a nonfiction Star Trek book in there somewhere where you could compile all that information and just do like a history of Star Trek in print, right?
Yeah.
Like in different categories or whatever. I think there would be I don't know if it's a huge demand, but there would be certainly be interest in that kind of thing. Certainly from somebody like me as a Star Trek writer and a Star Trek fan for so long, I'd love to hear some of the backstory on some of that stuff. It makes me think about the book that Judy and Garfield Reeves Stevens wrote about the Lost Phase, right?
Hmm.
That TV series that was gonna come out, but then it got turned into the motion picture. Like all that lore and information about Star Trek that was kind of forgotten for a while by a lot of people, and then like it comes together and like, oh wow, this is really interesting stuff, and there's lots of ideas in there. So maybe take all that stuff and think about how could you turn that into a book,
I was
and
actually just looking for that book, because I
yeah.
think I have it like in my TBR somewhere around here.
Uh-huh.
And I also
Uh-huh.
have one that just came out. It's called Lost Federations. That was about all the like the possible stories that were going to happen, but then,
Mm,
like
yeah.
what happened with the motion picture and uh, the new Star Trek TV series that didn't end up happening.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Cool.
yeah, and I've seen some actual books that like did a history of like the Star Trek publishing, the official stuff.
Hmm.
And I've seen a couple of them that were like very cut and dry, just like, here's the book, here's who wrote it, here's a synopsis, moving to the next one. And then
Hmm.
like ones that gave kind of like context behind it. And there's that
Yeah.
context stuff that like you get the meat of the story.
Hmm. Hmm. And then of course you know, now that you're starting to interview writers, right? You could tie it together. You could provide the you could do the, you know, the dry synopsis of the book, but you can also provide the context and the backstory, and you can talk to the
Mhm.
writers and say, okay, hey, you know, hey Dayton, what were you thinking when you wrote this book? Where were you, and what was your headspace, and what were the social, economic, political issues of the time that did any of that
Right.
tie into your book? Right? I mean, there's all kinds of places you could go with that, I guess.
Yeah, so we gave each other $1 million ideas.
There
So
you go.
let's
Yeah,
see how well we capitalize on them.
absolutely. All right. Well, thank you, Adam. I really appreciate you having me on the show. Really appreciate it. Love all the work that you're doing. Have a great time at Shore Leave.
I,
It's absolutely an interesting experience. So I hope you have a great time.
I hope so too. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, sure thing. Take care. Be well.
All right. Have a good
All right.
night.
Cheers. Bye.